Hey, everybody. It's myself, Samson Folk, in another podcast. This podcast, of course, one of Canada's favorite. It is the one that includes Trevon Heath, the namesake, wherein pull up Trey, he pulls up. Trevon, how you doing, man?
Good. It's been an interesting week. Some good stuff. I know we're gonna get into it about we went paintballing, adding to
Yep.
our
Yep.
friendship experience, which we'll talk about in a second. But most importantly, in super important news about the podcast, we are retiring an old friend. This mic has done a lot for this podcast, a lot for Raptors Republic. This will be
Yep.
the last time you see this on camera. We're upgrading, we're doing new things.
No more
And it's bigger
lightsaber,
than
Mike. No more light the beam.
it was a
Man.
good time.
Yeah, I got us started.
Yeah.
And you know what? You get to keep it now because the company changed hands. So now that podcast is yours. You could gift it maybe to like Mackay Bruce or something. Give him a head start. Thoughts, comments, concerns?
I'm not opposed to it. I
Okay.
feel like we need like the first step of growth is like, acquiring our little sister company.
Yes. Yes. For anybody just tuning in, this is the Pull Up Trade podcast. We'll be talking a lot about Ja'Kobe Walter, Gradey Dick, RJ Barrett, Scottie Barnes injury, of course, but we have to catch up on paintballing. Myself and Trevon, among our other friends, we went paintballing. Our bodies are covered in welts right now. You can't see it. I got shot in the face, man. I got hit in the face, and it hurt a lot. We're covered in welts. Trevon,
Yeah.
did you learn anything about yourself paintballing?
I hate paintballing. I hate paintballing. Like like I'm still recovering from this injury, so I honestly could not run. I first start, we're playing team deathmatch. S was there, Josh was there, some of the fellas you guys know. I run into the middle. The first thing I do, lined in my chest. It felt like I got electrocuted. It's it's just not for me. Like it's a smaller man's game. I was trying. There was one shot
Your hitbox is too big, yeah.
I was trying to get underneath the barrel. My shoulders up as bangs me right in my shoulder. It's just not for me. I'm more of an upstairs camper type of guy.
My favorite, by far my favorite, is our one friend, like a Looney Tunes when you get "Youch!" He went from that to "Ah! Ah!" It was, oh my god! And then obviously he didn't listen to the rules. So when he was out, he hung out at the back. You're supposed to go to the front. So I snuck all the way back, and he's just sitting there. I thought he was camping. I shoot him. Ah! Ah! He's like, I'm out. I'm out. Oh man. But then they invited, there was like a bunch of kids who came in, and then they brought in the professionals, and the
Oh my!
professionals shot me in the head. Tough.
When I saw that he had a flashlight on top of the gun, bad news.
Yep. Yep.
Bad news.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to get to 12,000 subscribers. We're also trying to gas our podcast views. We got to do a relaunch or something. Like you can see on screen, we have a logo now. We got to like properly launch the podcast. We have
Yeah.
quietly been one of Canada's favorite basketball podcasts for years. We actually have to launch it and do this with like intentionality. That's something we got to do. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe I'll muster up some like Raptors tickets or something for some sort of giveaway. Like I feel like we could do something that
Yeah.
for our faithful listeners who have not only listened and supported us but changed the trajectory of our friendship because they email me en masse to be a better friend. I learned something about everybody. I say myself, S, and Goose. We did well. That environment, we regulated breathing. We moved from point to point. We're like, yeah, giving the hand signals, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. We did well. No injuries for
Yeah.
anybody. That's a blessing. Thank God. Who did sustain an injury? And per Sham Sharanya, perhaps one that will keep him out for, quote, several weeks, is Scottie Barnes.
Hey.
What we had just started ramping up talks about how like it's going to be tough to tank with this team. The Raptors, I thought, were on pace to beating the Knicks in that game, quite frankly.
Yeah.
They lost to Dallas, who was one of the hottest teams in the league. They lost to the Thunder, who are either the second best or first best team in the NBA. But it seemed like they're on the right track. Where do you sit on this team now and Scottie overall, man?
It was tough because you were seeing like his like level of ascension. Like they were competitive against really good teams, and you were seeing him like push up the boulder. And like they were looking like a 500 ball club with him in the lineup. So it's really tough to have like such a major piece of the lineup gone. I think the hardest part of the situation isn't even wins and losses, is that we won't get we might not get an opportunity of seeing like barbecue together for a really long stretch of the season. And the entire point of the season was to see how they work together, what archetypes of players you also need around them, and like know if this the investment that the Raptors put in, what's a very large investment, if this is going to work and how to build around him. So you're kind of stuck in hoping that the that you get sometime towards the end of the year so you can help make better decisions and like who to draft, what free agents to put around them, but it looks more bleak now.
Yeah. It's if guys don't play together, you don't figure things out. Like you
Yeah.
never find out about some things and you don't get to establish as much connection. And I know honestly, some people when they see the Scottie injury, some people it's like the divine tank has been sent down. And if you feel that way, I understand some people are not that concerned about how RJ fits with Scottie or IQ fits with Scottie because they think it's going to be like DeBonsa and it's going to be like Cooper Flagg or Harper that are actually going to be his running mates in the future. But those guys are like 4 years younger than Scottie, and there has to be other guys on the team too. To me, seeing that Gradey Dick, Scottie Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Manu Quickly have only played 18 minutes together total,
Yeah.
that's like that's tough, man. That I mean, all the best to Scottie. I thought he was playing like fantastic basketball. Yes, he
Yeah.
had some struggles being the initiator offensively, but he was still making things happen. And how he changed the defense was just tremendous. We
Yeah.
saw a lot of things we liked. We just have to keep looking now for the silver linings on the edge of the roster. You have to really watch for not star development, but rookie to starter development. And that's where we're going to take the conversation now with Ja'Kobe Walter and Gradey Dick, who I think comprise a lot of what will make the rest of this season entertaining to watch. Ja'Kobe has been significantly better than I think a lot of people expected
Yep.
so far this season. And that has a lot to do with the defensive side of the floor, where the Raptors are currently 7 points per 100 possessions better with him. I went over a lot of his defensive tape. There's a lot of stuff that he does well that fits these Raptors. There's still a lot of stuff that he struggles with, of course. And offensively, even though he struggled immensely to hit shots, for example, he's 17% on unguarded threes this year. It's kind of the same conundrum as last year with Gradey, where Gradey wasn't hitting shots and that made it look bad. But
Yeah.
if you believe in the shooter who got drafted eventually shooting, then you don't worry about missed open shots. You just assume that comes around. The Ja'Kobe Walter of it all. Trevon, where are you on this?
I'm over the moon to be honest. Like looking at the things that he did really well in college, he's doubled down on those things and are excelling at. He's always been fairly scrappy. You see that with his rebounding. You see with his peskiness at the point of attack was something the Raptors like truly lack. And then also the driving. Like in college, his free throw rate was fairly high. He was a really good driver despite like any of the inefficiencies in terms of like his shooting percentage. And like as a driver right now with 31 drives that he has done is 1.2 per chance. His blow by percentage is similar to Grady's. You're seeing the ethos of the team come into play. Guys are able to relocate, be threats as shooters, and then also have the ability to put the ball on the floor. Some of the shooting stuff hasn't obviously equated to where you want it to be, but if you have guys that can extend advantages, it significantly helps sweep the floor the other way because that could lead to a pass that also could lead into the lane. And I think with added strength, his free throw numbers, although it's around like 48%, if I'm not mistaken, he will get stronger. His finishing ideally would get better, a la Gradey Dick year 2 with the Darko program. So he's ahead of schedule where Grady was, which is saying a lot. But I think there's ceiling there, like in general with him, where you're hoping that you can potentially get your fourth or fifth starter in your lineup.
Yeah. There's basically the biggest thing is how he's been able to play within flow. And
Yeah.
and to this point, like that 29% blow by rate. So all of that has come off of there's no ISOs there, there's no pick and roll there. He's just doing that off of closeouts, which means it's like a lot of catch and go, even sometimes that stampede cut, go and catch stuff, and attacking the defender's top foot, getting downhill. And, his numbers in the pick and roll this year are actually really good too. I mean, there's only like 14, 15 possessions to pull from. And of the 14 baskets the Raptors have scored out of his pick and roll possessions, I went and watched them all. 12 have come from the mid range. And that is largely because Ja'Kobe does a good job working in the mid range. When he comes off a screen, and something I'd like to see change, quite frankly, is he doesn't look to get downhill. He's more so using a hang dribble and a hezzy. He's
Yeah.
surveying, and he likes to use his craft and pace to start getting downhill rather than his, in my opinion, rather quick first step. So he has that athletic advantage. He just isn't using it all the time. And that's something you can really train a guy who has the athletic ability to do when he's running those pick and rolls, secondary
Yeah.
stuff next to Scottie in the future. This is a guy who hopefully by that time will be turning downhill more often and then using the hezzy dribble on the big man instead of at the level of the screen. Like, there's lots of stuff he can improve on, but as far as I can tell, he's doing a lot of stuff right
Yeah.
on offense. He's, as I said, 17% on unguarded threes, 23% on guarded threes. He's just 20% on catch and shoot threes overall. He's not shooting the ball well, but he's moving through the offense really well. He still provides a little bit of spacing. The Raptors are still 7 points per possession better with him offensively. So totaled, they're winning his minutes by 14 points per 100 possessions. When Jacoby's out there, they win a lot of minutes. And I thought maybe this would be like a Scottie Barnes thing, but the minutes without Scottie, the possessions without Scottie, they're still winning those minutes too. So he's been part of scrappy lineups that defend really well, that seal off the rim, that provide point of attack defense. He's been part of, like, honestly, lineups that have trouble scoring, but they just defend the ball and they get out and run and they get their own offensive rebounds. Those lineups have been able to win for the Raptors, and Ja'Kobe has been an important part of that. A lot of that has to do with he switches across the top. He keeps the ball in front. He picks up in the backcourt. He provides ball pressure defense. And, like, yes, he has a lot of improving to do as far as how he navigates screens, but he sticks on guys. And that is where he is fundamentally very different than Gradey. That's why I'm really interested to see how those two fit going into the future, basically. And I'm curious where you stand on that.
Yeah, I think with Grady's size and Jacoby's like upside on defense, which we always like praise like heading into the draft, you're putting yourself in a position where you have guys that can flip the court with closeouts, and I Grady's probably a bit ways ahead as a passer, but both of them can make reads, get downhill, score from there. Although like Jacoby probably isn't getting downhill as you probably want, he's still getting reps in ways that if he does scale as a creator, he's getting those opportunities where he is getting a hang dribble and it posing a threat if his shooting does get to the level where it really needs to be. Like even in the Knicks game with Jacoby, the Raptors weren't giving up great shots. Like the Knicks shot fairly well from the corners, but they
Yeah.
were able to keep their man in front of them. And you lose to star players like Jalen Brunson, who hits a 4 point play, things like that. But they played hard. Jacoby kind of fits in every single lineup just because of the way he can relocate, the way that he tries to defend, and that effort you see on the glass also. It makes him really sticky in a lot of lineups and make things a lot more tenable. So I really want to see him when Quickly's back as well. How does that look in sort of a two-man lineup? They're probably a little light on the ass, but I really want to see Jacoby fit in several different lineups just because of his effort across the board.
I wonder a lot about how Jacoby and Gradey fit together. Like, if Gradey, as we see, like, Grady's a much bigger person than Jacoby.
100%.
He's way bigger. And Gradey, the appeal to him has always been like the off ball stuff because he has size to step into the lane. He occupies larger parts of not only driving lanes but passing lanes, and he's got a pretty good idea of what the offense is trying to do. Like, he reads plays defensively quite well. Jacoby is a guy who's like shorter, much quicker, sticking on guys that Gradey wouldn't be able to do. Like, let's say it's 3 years down the road, right? And
Yeah.
Gradey is off ball and Jacoby plays and is able to put him there. That's really interesting. Their synergy, I think, is very interesting to watch for. And then obviously the Emmanuel Quickly stuff We'll see once he gets back. RJ, we've seen him with, we've seen him with Gradey. We've seen him with Scottie. And to your point, like what we talked about in the offseason, what a lot of people are starting to talk about now is like, well, how does this IQ, Gradey, RJ, Scottie, like how does that make sense defensively when they want to be really good? And the answer
Yep.
is it doesn't really. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. It would require significant development from people defensively to make sense. But you cross that bridge when you come to it. You try and get as much development out of these players as is. It's interesting to think about Ja'Kobe and Gradey kind of harmonizing with one another. But the Raptors also picked in Gradey and in Ja'Kobe two guys who love the mid range that are not stars. They love the
Yeah.
mid range. These two guys, they're very comfortable settling into that area. They've both been like around 48% on pull up mid range jumpers, which that's not Kevin Durant, that's not Devin Booker, but that's very good, especially for
Yep.
young players. I'm really interested in how they fit, the adaptability they show, and I want to talk about Gradey Dick now. Gradey Dick, we covered so much of what he's done. We loved him before the draft. We were very excited when he got drafted. We preached patience during that rookie season. And now we're looking at a guy who he's really taken, as we kind of predicted, like it's not the efficiency. It's that
Yeah.
he's just vacuuming up all the toughest possessions that when the play dies down, when the Raptors aren't able to get anything, he just takes the ball and tries to make something happen with it. He takes really difficult shots and he takes up the difficult usage so that other players can assume easier spots on the floor. Ochai Agbaji and Gradey Dick, for example, there's that harmony there. Like Ochai has been hitting all the easiest shots.
Yep.
Gradey takes all of the hard ones. You look at their true shooting percentage, Ochai's is insane. Gradey's is 55% middle of the road. You're like, well, tough. One guy's shooting good, one guy isn't. And so it's not that simple. One guy's taking the difficult shots, one guy's taking the easier shots, and it's healthy for an offense to have that ability to like, okay, we need a tough shot here. Like JJ Redick blasting out of the corner into these crazy fading, like little handoff actions with Joel Embiid. They needed that. Why? Because they had Ben Simmons on their team. They had Tobias Harris on their team. They need guys who can do that. Gradey becoming that high volume, difficult shot maker, just like makes everything life easier for everybody else. And he gets some hot runs. He has some cold runs. That to me is very interesting. What have you made as we've kind of gone farther into the season with Gradey?
Like things are like actualizing. Like obviously he wasn't going to shoot like a Kevin Durant clip from mid range, but he's still getting the level of respect of a really great shooter. And he when guys run him off the line, he's still able to create. Some of the mid range creation hasn't obviously like held, but he's still like fairly active. He scores fairly well, and when he's on those hot runs, it gets you back into games like the Dallas game where he
Yep.
absolutely goes insane and is hitting his threes. So I think he's right now he's around 34%. I think he's probably going to end up somewhere around 35, 36 overall, just because of the level of difficulty his shots he's taking. But like looking at the numbers, like he's shooting 31% from the corners. Like he's too talented of a shooter to miss the easy threes like that. I think some of that gets back to better levels. That increases his overall percentages in general. But I think it's really interesting overall that the Raptors have two guys that like with Scottie and RJ that want to ram through the middle of the floor and don't necessarily have anyone else on the roster that could be that second side creator, end of shot clock that can create and score in ways like that. He's developing within like a role where he's taking difficult shots and he's scoring in confined spaces and in the playoffs. And when you're really good, the paint is usually walled off. Teams guard the three well, they guard the paint well. The guys that usually are able to succeed are the ones that can fit within confined space, either get back middle or find ways to a second side and create from the mid range. And if those numbers continue to hold, he's becoming like one of the more like valuable like off ball threats in the NBA. So
Yes.
I'm still like over the moon, and I think with silver lining with Scottie being out, I was like you're probably going to see that usage increase again, and he's going to get more reps doing a lot of those things. So I'm one of the things I'm excited to see.
And to your point about like being one of the most dangerous off ball movers, he's still one of the most voluminous runners on offense in the NBA. He's still one of the most voluminous off-ball screen users in the NBA. The Raptors use him as a means to run around the defense and wheel grease and move and place help side defenders. He's absolutely essential. That's why the Raptors are much better on offense with him on the floor. His true shooting percentage, given how difficult his shots are, is still pretty great, 55%. Here's some numbers that are kind of fun. So, of all the sophomores, he's third in points per game. He's behind Wembanyama and Brandon Miller. Those are two fantastic prospects. Grady's still at 18 points per game, and his true shooting is actually higher than Brandon Miller's, 55.5%. Here's another great number for you. Of all sophomore drivers, Gradey gets fouled the highest percent of the time. And of the 8 sophomore drivers who drive the most, he has the highest field goal percentage on drives. And that, plus his free throw percentage being 90%, means his drives are really, really good for the Raptors. He's still only shooting 48% on the rim on the season. He has some goofs. We saw him go between a dunk and a layup after he shook Mikal Bridges out of his shoes on a triple threat. But when Gradey puts the ball downhill and takes it all the way, the seas are parted for him because he has had Scottie and RJ moving guys around, and because he draws the biggest closeouts, and because if you dig in on him, he'll just gather because he's big and he can step to the rim. And if you don't dig and you step up, well, he's super comfortable taking shots in the mid-range. He has been really impressive. And as he fine-tunes things, he's already being put in such difficult spots as a scorer. Like, as far as his unguarded threes this year, he's shooting 46%, but he's shooting 28% on guarded threes. Why is his corner 3-point shot not as great as last year? Well, because a lot of his corner threes come out of an ATO, a baseline out of bounds play where they send him sprinting into the corner, or he's getting these grenade DHOs. He's not getting to spot up, catch calmly like Ochai Agbaji does, or like many other players do. They use him in the most difficult way a shooter can be used. It's year 2, 18 points per game. You want to see the shot making come up, but he really helps buoy that by being such, like, at this point, an elite driver off ball. Like, he gets in the paint, he gets fouled, he shoots 90% at the free throw line. He's been able to provide a lot to the offense. The defense coming along slowly, but coming along.
Yeah, overall, like me with Gradey, like one, like as an off-ball defender, he shows understanding of like rotations, and just like to the point of like if Ja'Kobe trends to being a starter, you can fathom a way where both him and Scottie are guiding perimeter guys, and you're hiding Gradey.
Wait, I have a fun question.
Good.
Given who's on the team right now, is your ideal situation in 5 years? Emmanuel Quickly or let's do 4 years. Emmanuel Quickly is 29 or 30 at that point in time. RJ Barrett is 27, 28. Scottie's 26 or 25. 26, I think. Who do you want in the starting lineup in your ideal situation?
Ideal, so well, obviously Scottie.
Yeah.
Gradey would be a lock too. He's just too tenable, like offensively. I think the person that I wonder sticks is probably between Quickly or RJ. Is probably RJ, just because defensively, it's really tough to have a guy that's pretty slow footed, and also doesn't have the size to guard up with the opposing bigs. It makes things really tough overall. I think Quickly still has ability off the ball, and adding like someone like a Ja'Kobe, if he does hit his ceiling defensively, he could guard the opposing perimeter ball handler, as long as they're not like massive, like a Luka Doncic, for example. That makes things a lot more tenable overall. And I think like with Gradey, his offense is so good that it's warrant hiding him on defense. So I think those 4 are the ones that I think likely stick.
Yeah. There is a unique scenario, I think, where it's like this isn't Grady's ceiling, but there's a unique scenario where, let's say, Gradey gets stuck. There's not a lot of development on defense, where you look at it's like IQ, Ja'Kobe, RJ, Scottie, and Gradey is like this crazy heat check 6-man who plays in a lot of hybrid lineups. That's not my favorite outcome, but
Yeah.
that's a possibility as well. I saw a lot of people float the idea. Well, not a lot. I saw some people float the idea of Gradey as the sixth man, but obviously what I want and what most people want is for him to be a guy who is more so in that like Klay Thompson vein. But Klay
Yeah.
Thompson became an elite defender for a stretch of like 4 or 5 years, and I don't know if I see that for Gradey, quite frankly.
Yeah, that makes things tough. And like even RJ, like his offense, like say he develops that a pull up jumper, it changes like the course of like what he looks like as an offensive player and makes him like stick totally. I just think overall, I think Scottie's the him coming off blades actions, coming downhill. You probably want that long term to be Scottie, just because he's the force that he has coming downhill and like the additional passing. You probably want him to start taking up a lot of those possessions and for IQ to be your ball handler.
Yeah. Man, well, IQ has to get downhill a lot more often too. Like
100%. Yeah.
IQ has to get like one of these things. This could be changed. Is the development path to me is like if Grady's defense gets completely stuck, there's a way he falls out of a good starting lineup in the future. If Ja'Kobe, the shot making never comes around and the defense doesn't progress, he could easily be like a bench guard, and not merit being in the starting lineup. If
Yeah.
Emmanuel Quickley does not take steps as a driver and does not become, in my mind, the at least half of how he was defending with the Knicks because he was so bad as a Raptor to my eye. Yeah. Anyway, he has to be able to reclaim that
Yeah.
defensive punch that he had. And RJ, if RJ suddenly is a guy who like digs in on defense, and again, he's got tight hips, he's got slow feet, he's never gonna dominate on that side of the floor. But being a guy who like really cares about the scout, really
Yeah.
picks up what the team is trying to do, it could really change. There's a lot of development we're waiting on
Yeah.
to change the starting lineup of the future. Do you want to talk about RJ Barrett?
Let's do it.
Okay, but we're going to do it after we read our sponsorship. This show is presented by Sober Carpenter. It is craft beer reimagined this year. Sober Carpenter celebrates 5 years of brewing award-winning non-alcoholic craft beer. From hoppy IPAs to rich Irish reds, we've got flavor without the buzz. Or they do. I mean, we're flavorful men, but they've got the flavor without the buzz. Find Sober Carpenter at Sobeys, Loblaws, Whole Foods, Metro, Farm Boy, or delivered straight to your door at sobercarpenter.com. Cheers to 5 years of staying true to the craft. Sober Carpenter, crafted for those who sip differently. Trevon, you know damn well who sips differently. Myself. You know what I did before becoming a writer, a podcaster? I am the joke. I'm the joke. Allah, the men you put on this earth to build homes or podcasting. I was doing carpentry, man. And I'm sober. This product's named after me. I had the apple cider. It was good. It was
Yeah.
good. I like
Fair
apple
enough.
cider. When I was young, at Christmas, everyone, like all the adults would drink. They'd have,
Yeah.
it'd be orange juice and mimosas was a big thing around my house. And I would always drink like apple cider. And it tasted just like the apple cider I had grown up. It
Yeah.
was awesome.
Question, like, because you were a carpenter, do you like equate that to like you can fix anything? Because like I know like people, I'm a white label worker. I'll tell everyone that I can't fix a thing, but like you see somebody struggling, are you like, hello, I can fix that? Like
What are they struggling with?
hmm, they like a cabinet. A cabinet's a bit shaky. Do you like? I got some tools.
Honestly, I don't have any tools in Toronto. The tools are all in Saskatchewan. So no, I left it all like, yeah, of course you try and help if you can, but like if someone has a shaky cabinet in their house, like let's say I go to Lewis's and I'm like, I'm like the guy from Holes, I can fix that. Like, no,
Yeah,
absolutely not.
yeah. Don't do that at my house. Don't emasculate me in my
Exactly.
house.
Like your job, you're a marketer
Yeah.
and you've done none of that for me. So we work on the clock. You know who's been putting in work on the clock, Trevon? RJ Barrett. Now, what happened is he leaves the New York Knicks. He has subtly messaged repeatedly that he didn't change, the situation changed, and suddenly flourishing. So for anybody who wants the stats on RJ Barrett, who we keep talking about, but my God, he's been really fun on the season. 23.6 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, 5.8 assists. For everyone who loves true shooting, 55% true shooting. Next to Scottie, 24, 7, and 5 on 60% true shooting. That is 60% true shooting as the quote unquote second option. 24, 7, and 5 is the second option. Hey, we have qualms about RJ's defense. I'll talk about it all the live long day. It's been tough.
Yeah.
Offensively, I basically have nothing. He's been so
Yes.
good. What to you? We're almost a year removed. Almost December 30th, since you and we looked Svandiar in the face and we said, don't judge so hastily, sir. We think RJ Barrett can be good. What has changed for you?
I'll say it. We coined a term called not being okay, hold on. You're making me Oy, oy. Okay. I think the major change obviously is like he's playing with an offense that has tons of motion. And like being with a primary like Jalen Brunson, who's super stationary, gets downhill, and is mostly looking for his shot. Um, Forces the guys around him to play in really standstill situations. You saw when we played them the other day, they have tons of guys and they've built around that. They have tons of guys that like OG, Mikhail, Cat, who play really well in a standstill position or are willing to be really active cutters. RJ Barrett, while being a really, really good cutter, he was put in positions where you're getting the ball late shot clock, you're in a standstill position and having to create. And you saw some of that when Scottie wasn't in the lineup, like putting the ball on the floor, doing a pull-up jumper just isn't what he does. But in this offense, he's in motion, they're in transition way more. He's getting downhill and curling a lot better. And like even the Knicks game, the minutes he played without Scottie was some of the best he's had like this season. They got in transition a lot. He got downhill, and if you're a team like the Knicks, where you have a weaker guard like a weaker wing like Mikal Bridges, like RJ's gonna bludgeon you. He's gonna get into the lane. He's gonna score. Like his offense has gotten to a level where you're contemplating of like, is there like a star threshold? And like we've had stars that have been really like poor defense. DeMar DeRozan, one of my favorite Raptors of all time. Like
My favorite player ever. He's cool, man.
like if Vince didn't exist, like DeMar would be my goat. But
Vince is your GOAT?
my
That's
goat
your
Raptor.
favorite guy ever?
Yes.
Okay.
I wore 15. I didn't think I wore 15 in high school because of Vince.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Damn,
Real
I wore
stand.
number 9 because of Paul Correa. It was a carryover from hockey. He
Yeah.
was the sickest dude.
He
Paul
was
Correa
sick.
was so cool, man. Anyway, RJ Barrett.
But RJ's hitting a plane where he's doing besides the pull-up shooting, he's doing everything at such a high plane, from being a driver, being in the pick and roll. His catch and shoot shooting it has got to a point where teams are trying to run him off of the line. He's gotten to a point where some people might have said he was a trade dump, but like right now he's looking like the star of the
A
trade.
toxic asset, dare
A
you
crock.
say? It is crazy. Well, that was what we echoed at the time of the trade, was that the again, if you're idealizing a team and you don't see RJ's defense improving, of course you say like, well, I don't know how it fits necessarily. That people, again, we talked about DeMar. People have been doing that with DeMar forever. They're like people thought DeMar's career was going to be like almost over after San Antonio. And then he
Yeah.
just kept scoring 28 points per game in Chicago. And now like it's just he just keeps going, and he'll go down as one of the better scorers in NBA history. As crazy, like over his
Yep.
career, as crazy as that is. RJ Barrett has that same kind of stick to itiveness and resilience as DeMar DeRozan to work on his craft, keep bringing things back, and he has that strength and physicality and comfortability with contact that allows him to pursue and work through so many of these possessions that other players might kill the dribble or stop short.
Yep.
RJ, when we think about like when the Knicks had him on the team and went to the playoffs, when things got more physical, Knicks, who had more possessions than him, Knicks, who scored more points per 36 than him, Knicks, who had trouble, fell to the wayside as RJ assumed a larger role and
Mhm.
started taking more of the ball and scoring, because that more physical environment requires a more physical player or someone who's willing to meet it. Gradey Dick is not a physical player. He is willing to meet it. That guy doesn't give a damn about his body. IQ is a guy who in the playoffs has really struggled with physicality. Darius Garland, who I have loved and adore his game, he needs to work on embracing that physicality. It happens to a lot of players, but there are
Mm.
guys who are surefire. It might not be the most efficient, but you look at that guy and say, he's going to find a way to put the ball in the bucket. Sometimes that's just what a team needs. That has been RJ Barrett. And it looks pretty efficient. The passing leap is real. He's gotten
Yeah.
to make more reads. He's done a better job of creating for others. He survived the New York Knicks isolation offense. He came over to this more egalitarian European style with Darko, and he's been super, super fun.
Like he even the possessions that he was going against OG, like he was able to keep him on his hip, use physicality, get in the lane, and late in the game, he was able to flip the court, skip pass over to that looks like some of the best of all time. Some that were some that were worn a 6, some that wore a 23. Obviously, he's not that player, but those are star qualities in what he's pulling off. Like I wanted for him, I wanted them to win that game so badly, and for him to
Yeah,
score at
man.
the end, it would have been an amazing story if he like closed them out. But it just goes to show like the offense that the Raptors like employ like is some of the best in the league, and it uses principles that are beneficial into what playoff basketball looks like.
Yep.
Getting downhill and getting into the middle will open up things for guys like Ja'Kobe and guys like Gradey as they improve and become really dangerous. So I'm he's getting a second run, obviously, at no Scottie, and this is going to be a much longer stretch. But I'm looking forward to seeing like what an IQ Barrett duo looks like and how much they can win.
Yeah. Geez. IQ he's had such a rough go this season.
Yeah.
And it like the partially torn UCL, I know he avoided surgery, but that's still not a small injury. It's like
Yeah.
it's a you it doesn't happen to NBA players often, but I think it's pretty serious, especially like affecting the shooting. I don't know how far away IQ is from like getting back in and like because he hasn't gone through contact yet, and then kind of being part of the team and being positive. I guess we'll see, but it happened against Denver where RJ. It looked like they were going to win that game against Denver. Scottie goes down, and
Yep.
then it's like RJ versus Jokic. Good luck. Good luck. And then it happens against these Knicks where it looks like the Raptors are going to win that game against the Knicks. And there's RJ versus Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. Good luck, man. Because
Oh,
again, like Ja'Kobe Walter scored 19 points in that game. I think Jakob finished with 15. Like the Raptors are looking. Gradey finished what with? I don't remember what Gradey finished with anyway. But the
yeah.
Raptors are looking for offense wherever they can find it.
Mhm.
And RJ's just like me again. Oh, and I have a Defensive Player of the Year nominee, OG Anunoby, on me from moment tip goes off, and they're weaking me, and everybody in the world says I can't go right, I can only go left, and they're literally playing weaking, which is the defensive principle where you force a player to his weak hand. I wrote this big piece about it, how RJ managed to score 30 points on 60% true shooting with OG Anunoby dialed in specifically on him. That was
Mhm.
his check. That's who is better to guard a wing player slash guard than OG Anunoby. To me, nobody. Who is harder to go up against besides your former team that knows all of your weaknesses? Those two things came. And
Yeah.
then RJ beat them both for 30 points on 60% true shooting, only had one turnover, had 4 or 5 assists. Gumption, man. He worked so hard. He survived the Knicks on that night, and he survived the Knicks overall to get to this point. He has been really impressive. What we're going to talk
Yeah.
about, something that is really impressive. Your goddamn smile. You twinkle. You twinkle, brother.
Oh,
We
I'm
haven't
blushing.
talked about it. We haven't talked about it really this year. We used to talk about it a lot in the more when we were down in the doldrums of a team that was supposed to be good but wasn't.
Felt like a ghoul.
Smile watch. Trevon, what is the status of the smile?
See, I don't want to be considered avant-garde. I work very hard not to be avant-garde,
You
but
need to lose that word out of your vocabulary, man. Gone.
it's such a great word. It
Yeah,
it
I know
breeds
you love it.
it breeds additional it breeds every time I say it, someone asks what's avant-garde, and then I describe to them why they're avant-garde. It's great. But I think in, in terms of enjoyment, like this has been probably since the year they made the playoffs, like the most enjoyable Raptor season that they've had. They play extremely hard. You're seeing development from several young guys, and the Raptors haven't had a team like this where they had more than one or two guys that are younger than 22, 23 years old, like play well. And seeing guys grow from day to day is super great to watch. And like now, like even that stretch with Scottie, you can now visualize like there's a pathway for the defense to being good, which I didn't think was actually possible with the impact that he has. So like I'm actually like, dare I say, like beaming? I'm glowing these days because of these
Beaming.
Raptors. I
Wow.
I'm locked in. I went to a 905 game. I went to go see the boys. We're gonna
The
go to another
boy, singular.
but we're gonna go to another 905 game. Like, I think like from the draft class, like obviously there's a lot of time left. Like this has been like one of the more successful ones. Like I want to obviously talk about it towards the end of the year, but you've gotten for the first 20 odd games, you've gotten amazing outcomes for probably 3 out of the 4 overall, and guys that look like they're gonna stick and play for the team for the rest of the year. So I'm extremely happy. I'm a bit of an optimist here, but I won't be frowning for a while.
Nice. To your point about the defense, with Scottie in, they were basically like a top, just barely top half of the league defense, which is considering who's on the roster is like,
Yeah,
hey, nice. And Gradey is playing some of that, right? And a rookie in Ja'Kobe Walter is playing in some of that. As much as we've been pleasantly surprised, it's still a rookie. Rookies aren't
yeah,
supposed to win minutes. Rookies aren't really supposed to help you win. There's obviously something going on with Ja'Kobe. It'll probably tail off a little bit as time goes on, but like, and they're doing it with RJ Barrett in the lineup.
yep,
Emmanuel quickly, when he got traded for, he's supposed to be a positive defensively. And in fact, many people at the time of the trade said he's a huge positive. We'll see, man. We'll see if this all bears out. But if there's a big positive point guard defender that hasn't played any games, and I know Davion Mitchell has been playing, but you step in and you score more on offense, which means you defend less in transition, which means that you should defend better overall. Like there's a world where if Emmanuel kind of gets it into gear defensively, you start sniffing 12. You start sniffing 11, you know?
11 would probably be like tear jerking. Like I might shed tears if this is the 11th best defense for like give me like 8 games of that, and I can use that in a quality tweet. So I'm not complaining.
Well, that's what you said. Like you mentioned being able to see something.
Yeah,
What have you seen? Like have you seen enough? We mentioned like we've hardly seen anything. This team has
yeah.
been so injured. What do you think is concrete to you?
I think concrete is like the Raptors like pick and roll offense, whether it's RJ, whether it's Scottie. It's
Oh,
like
actually, let me cut you off really quickly just to say we didn't mention Jakob Poeltl once during the RJ thing. That's a mistake on our end.
that
Part of
is a fact.
surviving the Knicks, part of being much better and being one of the better pick and roll players in the NBA is RJ Barrett gets to play with Jakob Poeltl, who
Yeah,
is unbelievable, man. Like all of the best possessions he had against OG Anunoby and the Knicks involved like tremendous screencraft from Jakob Poeltl. So anyway, keep
yeah.
going on.
The dude is the wall. He's great soft hands. He knows he's like one of the
Wait,
best.
I'm
Go
cutting
ahead.
you off again. What country do you think Jakob Poeltl is from?
Oh my! Oh my god! Oh my
Where's
god!
Jakob Poeltl from?
Hmm. Austria.
Yes! Well
Thanks.
done! Austrian hammer. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so sorry. Go again. Go again.
but but the way Jakob's able to use like his steps efficiently and guide with the ball handler like makes it easy. Like I think he's a bit of an assist hack because he catches and his floater hits at such a high clip that it's a possession or like play style like the Raptors can use and utilize in a playoff game for a long period of time, like as long as he's on the team. And then also like things that have stuck with me is like just like the overall play style. The way that they're like I said before, like the way the Raptors play like are indicative of like teams having success, like the Warriors, like the Denver Nuggets. It felt for a very long time that the Raptors were like zigging while everyone was zagging and wanting to exploit some of the possession stuff. Like the Raptors are still a good offensive rebounding team, but they're now doing things that emphasize and help their players instead of the heavy isolation team. So I'm really interested to see like as they acquire more players that fit that style. Because over the last 2 drafts, it looks like they've doubled down on those things. How does Scottie's ascension fit with those players around him? So like I'm the direction that they're going, I'm bought in, I'm sold on. They play hard every night. So those two things I think are like A pluses for me.
Yeah. And to do like just obviously you and I every week we talk about film analysis and we really get
Yeah.
into the weeds. I'm not worried about us ignoring that, but if we want to do just like the numbers analysis, the Raptors, I'll ask you, do you think that they have overperformed or underperformed their team's shot making so far this year?
I want to say underperformed overall.
I want to say underperformed as well. They are 22nd in the NBA in effective field goal percentage. I think that with health can conceivably be quite a bit higher. Their turnover percentage, they're young, that will get better.
Yep.
However, they still play a pass heavy offense. They still have Scottie Barnes, who likes to try a lot of things at the head of the snake offensively. I think that their turnover percentage will always remain quite high. I think it can get a little bit better. Their offensive rebounding, they've been one of the best teams in the NBA. Like they've been second or first the whole year, and their free throw rate is bottom third in the league. I think that can get better as well. It's easy to see how all of these things get better. Now, better enough that the current roster is like, people say like, wow, this team could contend someday. I don't know about that. It needs tweaks as we go
Yeah.
forward.
100%.
But to me, it's very easy to see what this offense does well. It's very easy to see that like the tenets that Darko considers most important have translated to the NBA. It's working. They're not futuristic necessarily, but they're modern. They've pulled from triangle concepts. They run like a ton of stuff. They really know how to utilize the roster at hand. That to me is a great indicator about a coach. That's a great indicator about a team. They get buy-in, they work hard. You can see where they will get better. They have to tinker, they have to change things about the team going forward. Of course. But for now, smile watch. I'm there with you, brother. Just positively beaming. Oh,
Oh.
I forgot to do like
Oh.
subscribe at the top. I forgot.
We literally just saw him.
He's gonna kill us, man. We're
Oh.
done.
So sorry. Yes.
I always forget. This is my job and I forget. Terrible. Anything you want to say before we get out of here, Trey?
I just like overall, like everyone, let's just keep positive. Like Scottie injury is obviously like a lot of doom and gloom around that, but I think personally, like the silver lining of this is the development that you're going to get out of these few weeks, like from Gradey, from RJ. Hopefully, we see Emmanuel quickly play at sometime soon. Are going to be positive. And for anyone that mentioned that he's his all NBA thing, please, please get a
Oh,
life.
oh,
Please.
oh yeah. That's always tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man. I guess, geez. I just want to see Scotty be healthy. Like,
Yeah.
I understand at the end of the year, people will definitely, if the Raptors do, like if the bottom falls out of this thing,
Yeah.
there'll be people who look at then you can say like, nice, we get a really good pick. We get to be excited about that. But nobody should want it this way, right? And you should want to watch a lot of Scotty.
Yeah.
Because, like, again, I don't know how many people who are like obsessed with the tank watch all the games. I don't know who watches all the games in general, but as someone who before I even worked the job, I watched all the games. Now when I know you watch the games,
Yeah.
the people who watch the games, like, you gotta want to see the healthy team. You gotta want to watch your team play basketball. Like, you gotta want to see Scottie Barnes there. Injury is never ever good news, and for Scottie, like, just sad because, like, that's a nasty sprained ankle. He broke his orbital bone, man. Like,
Yeah. That's
he broke his hand. He has this exact scar, the one I have on my hand.
yeah.
He broke his third and fourth metacarpals.
Which is great. He's gotten injured 2 times going to the rim.
He almost did my injury last year and your injury this year. He almost
Yeah.
dislocated that thing.
Jesus. It's rough. Like, even like with the whole tanking thing, like the Warriors lost a year of Steph Curry and the pick didn't turn out the way that they wanted to. Like, there's no guarantee that you're getting a
James
positive play.
Wiseman won them that chip, brother.
I think they'd much rather have that year of Steph Curry back. They could have been another
Yeah.
championship. They could have made the playoffs. So I hope he plays as much as he can, and I hope they actually win games when he's back.
Yeah. I will say also, for people who are listening who, I think, ND Talks Ball DM'd me and was discussing further about how I discussed, like, tanking on the mailbag, and was like, well, this seems like a little bit narrow. Agreed. I haven't actually seen anybody who've had, like, the fully fleshed out, here are the parameters discussion on tanking. There are positive aspects to it, of course. There are negative aspects to it, of course. I've yet to see, like, the brilliant conversation on tanking that, helps discuss, I guess, like, the intricacies of the team dynamic, development under a tanking team, like, all this kind of stuff. That also accounts for, asset collection, having
Mhm.
high picks, the ability not only to draft those guys and develop them, but develop them with those extra possessions, or be able to trade your high picks, and, like, how long do you have to lose? How hard do you have to try to lose to be tanking? It's a tough conversation. I don't mean to be dismissive about anything. That's but it's just, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
It has been foisted upon the Raptors, maybe,
Yeah.
potentially. That's another great word. You can add that to your avant-garde vocabulary. Foisted.
Foisted.
Yeah. Do you know
That's
what it
really
means?
No, go ahead.
No,
I just assumed it was like thrown in, like forced.
foisted is like forced, exactly, yes.
Oh,
Forced
yeah.
upon someone. Yeah,
Cool.
you had it exactly. Yeah. It's to me, to foist something on somebody is, like, tremendous. Don't you think?
I'm gonna use that if you do come to my Christmas dinner. I'm gonna just like
I'm coming to your Christmas dinner.
I'm just gonna throw that in random conversation and see how Jamaicans respond.
Wait. Can we? How do you think they're gonna react to me? Just ballpark it. We haven't had this for anybody listening. We haven't had this conversation privately. We're having this publicly.
See, I think it's where it's really, the ball is really in your court. How do you want this to go? Because it's like this conversation. Like, you could really use your last name on this pod currently and really fuck up and really throw and really change up this entire dinner. Or, oh man, you're gonna mention probably that you do basketball. But everyone knows, actually, my family, that we and you both do a basketball podcast. And then you're going to get asked, like my wife's father loves Sean Kemp, says he's a top 10 player of all time. Are you gonna look him in the eye and say LeBron James is better than Sean Kemp?
Sean Kemp is the best I ever seen. Rain Man out in Seattle. I can hang. Don't you worry.
All right.
Everything is good at Trevon's Christmas, bro. Trevon, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day, and goodbye.